Ash, are you the smartest and most talented person in your office?
Oh, by far.
Big D, are you the smartest and most talented person in your office?
I don't know. Who knows? I think I'm somewhere
Ash,
in between Peter and Milton.
Big D, just behave yourself.
Don't quit, Big D.
No. Don't worry. I'll stay put. Year 15, here I come.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat the Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, then this is the podcast for you. I'm one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me are my co-hosts, Ash, damn it feels good to be a gangsta Schlafly.
Hi, y'all.
And Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And each week we take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you'd like to see all the movies we have covered, will cover, or want to choose one for yourself, please visit shatthemovies.com and have a look. At the end of each podcast, we provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie would take to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. That's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, you can subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Watchmen, Lovecraft Country, and coming up in January 2021, Season 3 of American Gods. You can find all that information or past episodes at shatontv.com. Finally, to hang out with us live all week long, you can follow and subscribe to our Twitch channel, shatthemovies.com/Twitch, where we play video games, host watch parties, and end each week with a Shappy Hour cocktail party at 9 o'clock Eastern on Friday. Also coming up on our Twitch channel, we are doing watch parties for The Expanse. So if you have Amazon Prime, you can watch live with us and chat with us while we're watching The Expanse together for Season 5. That starts December 16th. All that being said, Big D, what movie are we reviewing today?
The movie we're reviewing today is part 2 of the Don Sauce double feature. He's one of our listeners who was kind enough to donate generously on a Twitch stream one night. We did his first movie, Transformers, the movie, last week. And this week we are doing his second commission, which is the dark satire of the work life of a typical mid to late 1990 software company. And it is the 1999 Office Space.
When Don Sauce wrote in again, and he said, "Hi again. So I don't have much of a recollection of this one. I don't remember where I was when I first saw this because I lack y'all's, particularly Big D's, capacity for photographic recall of where I saw a movie. Props. Also, I never had money for movie theaters back then, and they wouldn't let you get high in them, so it was probably on DVD. I do specifically remember being psyched to see it, though, because I had been a fan of both Dilbert and Beavis and Butthead, and also had a massive crush on Jennifer Aniston. So it was ironic for me that the movie lacked B&B's anarchist spirit and that Jennifer Aniston was just kind of a wet blanket in this one, which is a shame because the rest of the cast, most of whom I didn't become familiar with until much later, is phenomenal. Maybe it's just that Aniston and Rob What's-His-Face had zero chemistry. To date, this is still one of 12 DVDs I've ever owned, and while it's not a match for Dumb and Dumber's firehose output of hilarity, the comedy has a nice groove to it, perfect for watching during forced isolation. Regards, Don Sauce.
Well, Office Space is a 1999 dark comedy written and directed by Mike Judge. It satirizes the work life of a typical 90s software company, focusing on a handful of individuals wary of their jobs. Office Space was filmed in Dallas and Austin, Texas, and is based on Judge's Milton cartoon series, and was his first foray into live action filmmaking and his second full-length motion picture release following the Oscar-worthy Beavis and Butthead Do America. It was a box office disappointment, making only $12 million against a $10 million production budget. But after repeated airings on Comedy Central, Office Space sold well on home video and has become a cult film. So Big D, Ash, I was in college when this movie came out. What are your memories of Office Space?
So, of course, right after Don Sauce just complimented me on having a photographic memory, I have to disappoint him. I have no idea. No clue. But I do have a defense. This came out 4 days before I reported to basic training. So for that year, it was kind of pretty much taken up and I was busy. But my life during that time was very different than the movie's plot. So it wasn't so scary as I think it would have been if I was in college. So I don't remember the first time I saw it. And at the time I saw it, it was still a foreign idea about working in an office and having a cubicle as your the rest of your life. So watching it now that has become my life, it was interesting to revisit.
Yeah, I don't remember the last time I saw this. I do remember the first time. I saw it for the first time when I was at Tulane in college, much like Eugene. This was a big movie that was just on all the time, especially junior and senior year. Shout out to Aaron Hall, Suite 314. We would all sit around and we would talk about how we would never, ever become corporate slaves, that this would never be our lives. And we were going to be artists and we were going to change the world. And now at 37, when I'm not quite so idealistic, it was pretty interesting to watch it because clearly my feelings about money and about job security and things like that are much different than they were when I was 21 and 22.
Ash, I'm wondering now if like Office Space is still required college viewing, you know, like having a Bob Marley tapestry on your dorm room wall, because I mean, we were 3 years apart, and in college, this was not just like a movie we watched once or twice. This is like every week, if not every day. And it wasn't just my friends who were in college. Like my high school friends kind of split up into 3 segments after graduation. So about half of us went to college and the other half just went straight into tech. Like they got jobs at internet service providers or got jobs doing IT. Back when you could just go straight out of high school and just get to a company and just do IT work for them because nobody knew how the fuck a computer worked. And then the third segment was just the king bee on his own doing whatever the fuck it is he does. But the techies were all skilled enough in IT to go straight in the workforce and live this life. And they would come to us who were in college and be like, holy fuck, my office is so lame. And they all had those like ill-fitting khakis and like those way too big shirts and nasty ties, which are beautifully displayed in the costuming for Office Space. So let's go ahead and unpack this horrible day at the office. Big D, roll the trailer.
From Mike Judge, creator of Beavis and Butthead and co-creator of King of the Hill, comes a movie about people who go to work. Who are part of a team.
And remember, next Friday is Hawaiian Shirt Day.
Okay, but I could set the building on fire.
Who respect their boss.
We need to talk about your flair.
Well, I have 15 pieces on.
15 is the minimum. Brian, for example, has 37 pieces of flair on today. And a terrific smile.
And need to escape.
I don't like my job, and I don't think I'm gonna go anymore.
One of these days, I just kick this piece of...
I'm thinking now it might be more fun to just get fired. And I've always wondered what that would take.
Oh, Peter, listen.
Well, it looks like you've been missing quite a bit of work lately.
Well, I wouldn't say I've been missing it, Bob.
That's just a straight shooter with upper management written all over him.
We're going to be getting rid of these people here. Mr. Samir, not going to work here anymore anyway.
You haven't been showing up and you get to keep your job.
Actually, I'm being promoted.
Thank you, Bob.
This is a suck! They're gonna throw you out on the street so that Bill Lumberg's stock will go up. Ooh, it's completely unfair. Initech deserves to go down.
We're just the guys to do it. Tell me about that virus you're always talking about. The one that could rip off the company for a bunch of money.
I'm not going to do anything illegal, Peter.
Illegal? Samir, this is America. The worst they're gonna do is they put you in a white-collar minimum security resort for a couple of months. You know they have conjugal visits there?
I might be showing them my face.
Oh. They let you have sex with women?
They sure do.
Okay, I'll do it.
Office Space.
I know you've been getting pretty depressed about your job and everything, and so I just wanted to tell you, good things can happen in this world. I mean, look at me.
Oh.
Peter Gibbons, Samir Naginanajar, and Michael Bolton work as software programmers at Initech alongside Milton Wadhams, a meek collator who's mostly ignored by the rest of the office. They also work with Initech's smarmy vice president, Bill Lumbergh, whom Peter loathes. Peter's girlfriend, Anne, persuades him to attend a hypnotherapy session where Dr. Swanson, the therapist, dies of a heart attack while hypnotizing Peter. A newly relaxed Peter acts on the impulse to skip the next workday, and he ignores phone calls from Lumbergh and Anne, who breaks up with him. Peter begins dating Joanna, a restaurant waitress who shares Peter's loathing of management. So, guys, I hadn't seen this movie since college, and I was wondering, am I still going to relate to it? Which is kind of the entire point of doing this podcast. And it opens with this horrible scene of commuting where Peter is on the road. I think this is true to Texas. Ash, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what I've told is the norm in the Houston area. And I've only had one job ever that required a commute that was more than 10 minutes. Like right now, I'm 5 minutes from my office, and that's usually been the case my entire life. When I worked at the Chicago Sun-Times, it was a 90-minute commute. And the hours were just such that I couldn't take the train, so I had to drive in Chicago. After that, I moved to Ohio and then to Arizona, and I swore to myself I would never, ever take a job where I have to commute. I don't give a fuck what the job is. I refuse to spend hours of my life in a car every day on the way to and from work, which is the worst part of the day. I don't know how the people do it.
I wish I could feel that way. So I just miraculously, I don't know how the hell this happened. I hit the 14-year mark at my current job. So
God damn.
Yeah, no kidding. Seriously. So I was thinking about it. I was like, okay, so normally it takes me 45 minutes from my house to downtown Orlando. So back and forth every day, it's an hour and a half, 5 days a week, roughly 50 weeks a year, give or take, 2 weeks vacation, maybe 3. That's 375 hours. That's 15.62 days spent in my car. So if anything, COVID has given me those hours back. And now I don't know how I'm going to go back to commuting when I have to in January. I'm going to now know what it's like, and that 14 years might come to an end.
I don't know. I mean, I commute 50 minutes each way to my job every day. And last year, when I was still at the University of Houston, I commuted 45 minutes each way, but it was in stop and go traffic. And the commute I have now that isn't, in stop and go traffic, I fucking love, because if I have a shitty day at work, like I can leave it in the car because I have a whole hour to get over it before I get home. And I have a whole hour of peace in my car in the morning where I can listen to whatever I want to listen to and not have to listen to like Disney music. And so it's kind of nice now, but that stop and go shit, don't miss that one day in my life.
One thing this movie does fantastically is show the soul-crushing aspect of the office environment. I think we saw it in like Joe versus the Volcano, done really well. Lots of movies nail this, The Matrix, I guess. But one aspect of office spaces I do like is meeting rooms. Surprise, I'm a very animated person. I like drawing on the walls. I love in-person collaboration and debate. And I thought that's what life was going to be like outside of college, because my first job outside of college was in the newsroom. So you had reporters and editors and photographers and these like grizzled journalists who like literally had whiskey in their desks and smoked at their desks. And it was just like in the movies. And after leaving that world, I finally got into an actual like corporate job. And it was all the things you see in Office Space. There was the cubicle, there was that like office chat, those office noises. And the one thing that blows my mind, and I don't know if you guys have this at your respective offices, but I found out like a year ago that they pump in white noise to like make those other noises go away.
Oh, yeah.
But it's this that's just going on all day long. It's fucking mind numbing. It's terrible.
No, I need it. Otherwise, I'm going to listen to that girl be like, hello. I mean, it's going to drive you nuts. I need that noise. Everyone needs to find that person at work you can connect with so that you can look together at everything that's going on and laugh. If you don't have that, your head will explode. The buzzwords and the way people try to make themselves seem more than they are. When I hear people like, oh, do we have the additional bandwidth for this project? Or we really need to move the needle. Well, hold on there, Gene. Let's take this discussion offline. Our team is really thinking outside the box. Let's unpack this whole it is the fucking worst. When I hear think outside the box, if I don't look at one of my coworkers, Sean, I am going to scream and pull a Milton.
What's weird is I don't know if there's like a school where they teach people this shit, or like if it just passes like a virus, right? Where one person hears in the meeting, so they're going to say it. But there must be some like grand office master who is spreading this shit from a top mount office, like where it's like this corporate ladder going downward and just shit's tumbling down. Because the 10,000-foot view, like you and I work a country apart, like on opposite coasts essentially, but the same terminology is being used in completely different industries.
Okay, so here's the challenge. All of our Shat listeners, Gene, Ashley, during the upcoming week after this podcast released, I want you all to make an effort to throw as many buzzwords as you can in every single work-related conversation that you have. Let's see if anyone calls you out. Watch people's faces, because we'll either make people laugh or we'll make them more miserable. And being miserable like Peter is, I can feel it. I know what it is like to go to work every day and dread it. I sold timeshare for a period of time after I got out of the Army. I got my real estate license, and I went to work at Westgate Resorts. So it's the scummy ass timeshare in Orlando. Sorry if any of our listeners hold weeks there, but the money's great. I mean, if you have flexibility in your moral code and you'll sell to people who don't need it or can't afford it, it's a great business. You can make big money. And I just couldn't sleep at night. I would dread it. I'd lie awake counting the minutes until the next day. So I know how Peter and these guys feel. And thankfully, the job I have today, I actually feel like I'm making a difference, because living a life of being miserable is not worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm super privileged because I've never worked a job that I hate, because I can't do it. I don't have that part of my personality where I'm able to just keep my mouth shut. Like, I'm that employee that's always going to tell you exactly how I feel about things, for better or for worse. Right. Well, and I mean, talk about performance reviews, right? Like the constant feedback I get is, well, you're very blunt sometimes. And I am, because I can't, I'm not fake. That's just something I don't do well. And so the job that Peter has, or even the job that Jennifer Aniston, Joanna's character, has, like that waiter job, I could never work that. And one of the things I noticed in this movie is that Jennifer Aniston, something happened to her in like the early 2000s where I feel like she became like a different person in the way that she looked. I don't know if she had a nose job. I don't know if it's just because she lost that really shitty 90s haircut. I don't know what it is, but I find her much more attractive today. And if it hadn't have been for her, this movie would have never been made, because Ron Livingston, the guy who plays Peter, he was a complete total unknown at this point. He had that really tiny role in Swingers a couple of years before, but that was really it. And yes, all you ladies out there, clearly he became iconic a few years later on Sex and the City when he broke up with Carrie on the Post-it note. But that was a long time from this. And so he wasn't a leading man. And so if Jennifer Aniston with that Friends fame had not come around, the studio wasn't going to let Mike Judge make this movie the way that he wanted to.
Ash, I'm glad you brought up Friends, because I never liked Friends. I don't understand it. My niece is in college right now, and all the kids are about Friends. They have like Friends sweatshirt. I don't fucking get it. Like, it wasn't funny then. It's not funny now. But she's charming in this. I mean, she actually made me laugh out loud a couple times when Peter's talking about taking the pennies out of the jar at the store, and she's like, "From the crippled children." Like, the delivery was perfect. I like that she was a little, I can't believe I'm using this word, grittier. Like, she was a little more down to earth. She wasn't somebody living in Manhattan and having, coffee at Central Perk. This was a character who I felt was more like somebody I knew. The only thing I felt was missing there was like, what's her story? Like, what is her real struggle? Because to me, I'm like, okay, she's either got a kid that we're not seeing here, some sort of addiction, or there was like sexism robbing her of her opportunities. Why is this person who's clearly, intelligent, attractive, and seemingly very, very fucking cool, like working at Tchotchkes?
Yeah, well, probably because a lot of girls who look like her worked at places like Tchotchkes, especially like these aspiring actors. That's what I thought she kind of was like, is like this aspiring actress, much like I feel like maybe her real life was like. And Tchotchkes is clearly a stand-in for TGI Fridays, right? Like the 90s TGI Fridays. And I know at the beginning, we talked about how this had a disappointing box office return initially, that it only really made a profit of about $2 million. But despite that, it had a really far-reaching chain effect. I mean, the first thing is that Swing Line started making red staplers thanks to the popularity of Milton, and TGI Fridays, that inspiration for tchotchkes, they actually stopped using their quote unquote flair on their uniforms because people would come in and they would harass their waiters about how much flair they had on. And so TGI Fridays completely got rid of that requirement in the early 2000s.
Now, I know we get accused often of being like elitist or too cool or whatever, but I do have a hatred for restaurants like TGI Fridays and Chili's where I can't really define what the fuck the food is there. We have Zips, like the sports grill or whatever. I just don't get, like, I understand going out for a particular culinary type, right? We're going to Japanese food. We're going to a steakhouse. We're going out for Ethiopian food. But they're like, we're just going to that restaurant that has loud, bright colors and music and they bring you food.
You see, but I can't believe I'm going to say this. I like 90s TGI Fridays. I want to go to a place that has shit screwed up on the wall. I want bicycles. I want Millennium Falcons. I want records. The way it is now, where it's all cookie cutter, where you could be at any generic restaurant trying to look upscale. What's the draw?
Wait, bikes, Millennium Falcons, and records. So like a hybrid of like Planet Hollywood, Hard Rock Cafe, and Cracker Barrel.
I want a garage sale exploded and got embedded in the walls.
Gross.
A pair of business consultants, Bob Slidell and Bob Porter, are brought in to help the company downsize. Peter finally shows up at work and casually disregards office protocol. The Bobs are impressed by his frank insights and promote him despite Lumbergh's misgivings. Michael, Samir, and Milton, however, are fired.
So apparently this movie inspired a ton of people in real life to kind of just up and quit their jobs. They watched Peter and realized like their own unhappiness and they left their positions. And while I said I've never worked a job that I hate, one thing I've also not done is I have never quit a job without another job to go to. It makes me really, really nervous to be unemployed. And there's this one line that Samir has in the movie where Peter says, "What if we're doing this when we're 50?" And he says, "God, can you imagine having that kind of work stability?" And it made me laugh out loud because as a 37-year-old, like that matters so much to me, is having that promise of a job tomorrow. And so I was just curious if you guys ever pulled a Peter move and just quit, like just said fuck it and just figured it out.
It's the fucking best. It's the fucking best. So my last job, my last newspaper job, they're like, "Hey, listen, we're going to lay your staff off. We're downsizing." You know, the consultants came in, they did all this shit. They're like, "We're moving the newspaper operations an hour south to a city called Centerville, but we're going to get rid of your staff. But we want to keep you on. And you're going to teach a new staff down there how to do their jobs." And I was like, you know what? Fuck you. Like, give me my fucking severance money. I'm out of here. And they were like, if you stay on for 8 weeks, we'll give you 8 additional weeks of pay on top of that in one lump sum. I was like, nah, no deal. My mom wanted me to move back to Arizona, and Ash, it was the best. I left. I got, my initial severance. I took 10 days to drive back to Arizona, stopped in New Orleans, stopped in Nashville, stopped in Louisville, stopped in Pasadena, Texas, stopped in all my favorite places, saw all my friends, had a great time. 10 days after I got back to Arizona, I had a new job. Don't worry about it, guys. If you're listening to this podcast, you are talented enough. Leave your job. You'll find something better.
Unless you have children, don't quit your jobs.
I'm envious. I found myself wanting to go to Dr. Swanson. Like that relaxation, that liberty only comes with youth. When you're older, you start to think like, okay, Gene was like, I'll get in my car. I'll go to Texas and New Orleans. I'm thinking about, I got to pay the mortgage. Mm-hmm. I got to put a college fund. You can't do that when you have a family.
But you guys are good at what you do. You'll get another job.
Makes me too nervous. I think about my kids. I mean, we contribute monthly into their college funds, and it's like we're barely going to make it if they go to a private institution. So,
Ash, are you the smartest and most talented person in your office?
Oh, by far.
Big D, are you the smartest and most talented person in your office?
I don't know. Who knows? I think I'm somewhere Ash, in between Peter and Milton.
Big D, just behave yourself.
Don't quit, Big D.
No. Don't worry. I'll stay put. Year 15, here I come.
But talking about real office fear, guys, if you're listening right now, you're a young none of you are, I know, but just pretend you're young. Maybe your kids are listening in the car. If you're new to the workforce, this movie is not fucking around. When you see These two things, when you see consultants show up in your office and there is a staff meeting, layoffs are coming. Do not listen to anything they are telling you. They are lying to you. Get the fuck out. And any company that's going to cut your colleagues will cut you. Stay in control. Like Ash said, you don't have to leave without another job lined up. Get another job lined up. They're coming for you.
Yeah, so I'll give another piece of advice. As far as Peter, like gutting fish and acting out, it is difficult to fire salaried employees with an HR department. If you're in a bigger company, you have to have multiple write-ups unless you sexually harass somebody. But you can fuck around and stay on for a while because it's a hassle to get you out. And most people, they decide they're going to fire you at least like 6 months ahead of time before it comes. So if you start noticing you're left off of email chains, you're not in meetings that you would normally be in, or people don't include you in conversations, bing, bing, bing. Hey, your time's coming. You just got to pay attention.
And you're in a much better position to find a job when you're still employed. Trust me on that one too.
Totally. And like being salaried, you do have an advantage. I work to task, not to time. I have things that I have to accomplish. If I accomplish them in 5 hours, I'm accomplish them in 5 hours, right? I'll try to do other things, but if I'm done, I'm done. If I'm working an hourly job, that 5-hour job is going to take me 8, so I don't know why Peter is such a doormat. If he's doing his job on time and he's going to be just submissive to Lumbergh, I'd be like, Bill, just fuck off. I wouldn't tell him fuck off, but I would say, Bill, I've done what you want. You can't make up new shit for me to do.
If you were more talented, you'd tell him to fuck off.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know. I think it depends on what kind of corporate you're in, because like Tom works at a job where even though he's really, really high up in his company, like he still has to be kind of like a dancing monkey every now and again and like perform when they want him to. And he does stuff. And I'm just like, just say no. And he's like, I can't say no if I want to get my bonus or if I want to, stay employed. And I think this is where my privilege from like working in education comes in, is that like, I don't believe in coming in on the weekend. I don't believe in working over the holidays. I've gotten into fights with supervisors the few years I worked in nonprofits where they tried to pull this kind of bullshit. Especially like one year, they're like, only certain people can take off at Christmas. And I'm like, fuck you. I'm going to take off whenever the fuck I want. And of course, Tom says that means I've never had like a quote unquote real job. But I think I'm just smarter in choosing the profession that I went into because I could never work under those demands ever.
Yeah, those are the two conflicting forces that really, really piss me off. One is being asked to, just be busy as opposed to getting anything done. The other one is this toxic positivity we see in this work environment. The banners that they have up at Initech, or like the people saying, anybody case of the Mondays. like there's two things in the world that piss me off: Nazis and toxic positivity. Like you're good vibes only social media. You're fucking like eliminate negative people out of your life. You're posting your inspirational quotes on Twitter. Bullshit. Like the only people who inspire me are people who fucking grind, people who disrupt the game, and people who have those hard conversations. And I think that's what Mike Judge is attacking here. People who just like succumb to office culture, Big D, who start using those buzzwords, those are not your friends. There are people who have come in to places where I've worked and laid people off, but they were fucking right on the up and up with me. They told me exactly what the fuck was going on. I'm like, cool, man. Like, I'm okay with you. You're explaining that person who worked with you was fucking useless. And when you think about it, you're like, you're absolutely right. They were Tom, not your Tom in the movie, who sometimes takes a message from the client and sometimes gets it to the engineer.
For me, the worst is the fucking birthdays. I wish nobody knew it was my birthday. Anytime they're like, hey, everybody, we're getting together at the copy machine at 5. It's Karen's birthday. And you get out there and there's the cake and it's this low energy, pathetic, happy birthday. And you can look, everybody's eyes are like, hey, listen, I got to pick my kid up today. Yeah. I love you, Karen. But guess what? I don't want to be sitting here wasting 15 minutes. Can we get back to work? And there's always the one or two employees who are like, hey, I went out and got a specialty cake because I knew you like it. And just the dead eyes and let us go. Nobody cares. It's Karen's birthday. I don't care.
I do encourage at my office, they used to do these like happy hours to celebrate people's birthdays. And the thing was that all of the people I work with have kids and they got to pick them up. But we all got drink tickets at the bar. So everyone would leave and they just hand me their drink tickets. And I get like 30 free drinks, drink myself blind, and then Uber home. Those were the fucking days, man. Peter, Michael, and Samir decide to take revenge by infecting Initech's accounting system with a computer virus that diverts fractions of pennies into a bank account. On Michael and Samir's last day at Initech, Peter steals the frequently malfunctioning printer, which the three take to a field and smash to pieces to vent their frustration. At a barbecue, Peter hears rumors from a coworker that Joanna slept with Lumberg in the past before she dated Peter. When Peter confronts her about this, a heated exchange leads to them breaking up.
So the studio was pretty upset with Mike Judge's choice of soundtrack, but Mike Judge is a huge rap fan, and I'm a huge fan of the soundtrack. I mean, it's completely classic. The scene with Ghetto Boys, like, damn, it feels good to be a gangster. Like, whenever I hear that song, I immediately think of Office Space. I don't think that I could, like, remove the connection between the two. And then, of course, the opening in the car where Michael is rapping every word to Scarface. It is really funny, but it's also really fantastic. The album was actually produced by Interscope Records, and I think it's pretty perfect.
Now I got the world swinging from my nuts. Damn, it feels good to be a gangster. Ash, you're absolutely right. Because what's the opposite of Office Space? It's hip hop. Like, that's the world they want to be in. That's in their hearts. And I love that Michael's, cubicle is even like fucking decorated with like Snoop and, a bunch of hip hop artists on there. It's fucking awesome. Some of the biggest hip hop fans I know work in tech. Apparently, it's like the best thing to listen to when you're coding. So, but lo-fi hip hop, right? Lo-fi hip hop.
I don't know. Tom listens to like crazy, like screaming techno music. Not hip. I mean, he loves hip hop, but he can't do it. He listens to the screaming techno. I would take hip hop any day over that.
It's because he's a dancing monkey. He's
yeah.
Euro dancing monkey music.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to talk a bit about something that's going to make me very unpopular. And I know I shouldn't care about this, but I have to be honest. This is what we do on the podcast. We're bearing our souls, even the nasty parts. I know you shouldn't care whom your partner has slept with. Like, it's none of your fucking business. It's the past. It's not like that person owns their body or that they're still in there somewhere, right? I mean, scientists might disagree, but I could love someone deeply, but if I found out that she consensually slept with Lumberg, like, I'm fucking out. Like, I know it's not logical. I know it's not fair, but I know that I wouldn't be able to let it go. So I'm going to ruin both of our lives by, because people do that. They act like they're over it and they're never fucking over it. And it creeps in another part. I just have to be honest with myself, honest with my partner, and say, listen, you fuck Lumberg. I can't live with it. We got to break up.
I totally agree. I sympathize with him. I don't care. Like Vanessa, she could have had sex with 50 dudes. I don't care. She could have done wild shit. Yeah, I would not care. The shit I've done.
Whoa!
The shit I've done, okay, I'm not proud of. Okay, I've done a lot of shit that I'm like, wow, I can't believe I was in these situations. And I would never be one to judge her. But there are those specific people in your life who are just like they're like your mortal enemies. They're the people who you cannot stand to think. They're the antithesis of everything you stand for. So I could see objecting to one person, but not like Clerks caring that she blew 27 guys.
Yes, this is the Dante shit all over again. Who the fuck cares? I do not give two shits who my partner was with before me. I actually think that this is by far the most annoying part of this movie, and it made me really hate Peter's character as an adult. And it's kind of where the movie started to kind of like fall off the train tracks a little bit for me. Because here's the problem. Fuck you, Peter. She's fucking hotter than you. She's choosing to have sex with you now. Get over it. I mean, oh my God. I mean, it made me so annoyed when I was watching this movie.
I love that Ash is saying this from the perspective of somebody who married a man who had 3 partners.
Right. But no,
of course, like, it's easy to say when he's only slept with 3 people.
But I mean, I've been with people who've had sex with a whole lot more people than
But you
he
didn't
has.
marry him.
No, but I didn't want to marry them. But if I had didn't marry Tom because he didn't have sex with a lot of people. I married him because I liked him. Like, it didn't have anything to do with that. I don't care.
What if he had sex with Stephen Miller?
Stephen, like the Steve Miller band?
No, Stephen Miller.
Stephen Miller. He looks like Mr. Burns, works in the White House, does immigration policy.
Oh, like real life.
Real life, yeah.
Yeah, I don't care. He could have fucked Rudy Giuliani. I don't give two shits. Okay. Doesn't matter to me. Hopefully not recently because he has COVID, but whatever.
Young Rudy or just any Rudy?
I mean, Borat Rudy, sticking his hand down his pants and laying on the bed. I don't care.
Okay.
Don't care.
Well, one thing this movie did was it brought back some memories for me. and speaking of Vanessa and a relationship, this movie made me revisit how we met. The Lawrence and Peter, the neighbors, through the really shitty drywall of like some of these condo or whatever they are, just the apartment complexes. When I left the Army, a friend of mine said, and I've said this before, hey, I got 2 hot Brazilian neighbors come move down. Our apartments looked like this. We were, 2 feet apart, the doors next to each other. We would always cross paths in the parking lot as we were either I was coming home from work, she was. And one night she invited me up. She said, hey, do you want to watch Trading Spaces? And I was like, bing, bing, bing. I knew this was code for let's hook up.
So wait, you heard TLC show and you're like, I'm in. Like,
oh, no, I just
you
knew.
relate those two at all.
I knew there's no way she wanted to actually watch it and talk about like the colors and be like, would you do molding here? Would you? Come on. You know what she wants.
I'm glad Ash mentioned there was a TLC show because I thought you were talking about the Eddie Murphy movie we're doing next week. And I was like, whoa, wait, what are we doing next week?
That's Trading Places.
Yeah,
that's Trading Places.
Basically, inviting someone to watch Kung Fu is the same as watching this. You're not coming to actually watch Kung Fu. You're coming to actually perform Kung Fu.
Well, taking it back to The Office, I wanted to talk a little bit about destroying office property, the scene that we get here with the printer being destroyed. Listen, I would never destroy anything in anybody's house. I take better care of other people's stuff than I do my own. I'm incredibly reverent when it comes to other people's personal property. Ash, you talked about, 80s high school movies when they're always like trash in the house. No, I will help you clean up your house. I'm not messing up anything. But when it's office equipment, I will wreck the shit out of it. I have smashed keyboards in the office. I have thrown my mouse. I've slammed doors in meeting rooms. I even threw a computer monitor across a room full of people. And so this scene, it was cathartic for me. I love this scene. Samir's like high heel kicks Michael, like punching the printer with his fist. I'm like, I know these feelings. Fucking PC load letter. Let's go.
You might be the Milton of the podcast after all. Throwing shit? Where did this go down?
Again, I think it's, like Bane was forged in the fighting pits. I was forged in a newsroom. Like, it's just normal in a newsroom to fucking break shit when you get pissed. We are the rock stars of the office world.
Yeah, I mean, I don't break things, but I definitely like to steal office like supplies. Like I always like when I left the university, I left with like all these laminating sheets and like reams of paper, and because our department shut down, so we were like literally. I sent you guys a video. We were like Enron. We were like shredding papers for days, and I was like, oh, well, I can take this with me. So I mean, that's definitely something I've done.
So this is how you make a podcast. You get one guy that breaks shit. You get one guy who doesn't work all of his hours, and you get the chick who just fucking steals shit from the office.
Klepto.
We're a fucking bunch.
Well, but in this part of the movie, it's clearly like the end game is developed here with their financial scheme that they come up with. And I love how 90s it is because it's got this whole Y2K angle. And for you youngins out there that are listening with your parents on the way to high school, please know that like Y2K was a super weird time, right? Like I remember in 99 counting down to midnight and like just waiting for the power grid to fail, like I was just ready for like it to be encased in complete darkness. And let's be honest, I mean, growing up in the crazy religious family I did, I also thought the rapture was going to happen at midnight. But my family did invest in like a lot of non-perishables. My dad got all these gold bars, like, removed his monies and put it in gold bars. And it was nuts. And I think kids today have absolutely no idea how weird the world's introduction to the internet was and like computers being so prevalent in our lives and our day-to-day, because this was some real shit.
Don't ever say that we're painting you as an elitist. Your dad was bringing gold bars and burying them. So shut up when I make jokes about ponies.
He didn't have like a DuckTales room of gold. He had like 4 of them.
Daddy, go take down the Monet. We're going to transfer it into gold.
We would never invest in a Monet.
Big D, they had so much money, it became monies. Like, that's how much money it was.
Monies.
But Ash, I totally agree with you that I remember we were clustered around the TV before Y2K. And I remember watching Russia, and we were like, okay, if Russia's okay, then we'll be okay. And they were like, okay, it's midnight in Russia. Okay, everything's okay. And we're like, thank God, everything's going to be all right. The Russians got through it. The Chinese got through it. America will get through it.
Low bar. That's a pretty low bar there.
Well, Peter discovers that a bug in Michael's code has caused the virus to steal over $300,000 in only a few days. After Michael and Samir blame Peter for their predicament, he decides to accept full responsibility for the crime and writes out a confession, which he slips under Lumbergh's office door at night, along with traveler's checks for the stolen money. Peter reconciles with Joanna and learns that the Lumbergh she slept with was an ex-coworker unrelated to Bill. So at this point, we've gotten through most of the big jokes of the movie, and I was so glad to see that they all worked. Michael Bolton's name being Michael Bolton in the car turning down his Scarface, as you mentioned, Ash. The whole like hypnotherapist thing with the worst day of my life. Each day is the worst day of my life. PC load letter, get a room, you two. And of course, Lawrence with his watch your cornhole, Peter. Like these catchphrase gags in other movies, they typically lose their luster over time. And I was just relieved that after 21 years, the jokes still hit.
I do believe they did. They hit for me, for sure. I laughed out loud a bunch when watching this, but I don't know if they actually still hit or if they hit because I found them funny back then. Like kind of like the issue with like Three Amigos where you guys laughed at shit and I was just like, what the fuck? That's not funny, right? Because I do agree with you. They were really funny, but they're very classically 90s jokes, right? And I would be curious to see somebody who'd never seen it before or to see somebody that was younger watch it and see if they also laughed in those parts because I don't know if that's so true.
I mean, I think the movie is funny. I think it does hold up. And I would love to stay on that thought, but I'm going to be the fun police. I'm going to slam on the brakes of the fun momentum of this podcast and do a little PSA for you. Okay, I have discussed this before briefly about the experience I had in the military, that one of the guys in my unit who I worked with for 4 years, he came in with me, Hassan Akbar, in 2003. In March, I had just gotten out. He deployed to Camp Pennsylvania in Kuwait, and he thought it'd be a great idea to throw a few hand grenades into 3 tents. And he shot up the talk. He shot up a couple of the bunks that the 101st were staying in. He ended up killing, I think, 2 people. One was like an Air Force captain, injured 14 people. He's on death row now. I don't know where he is, but there was a full trial, everything. They found a journal where he had fantasized about killing the people who had wronged him. And I talked to it was my roommate actually at the time when I left. And I said, was I in his book? And he said, no, he didn't want to kill you. And to me, that was a huge ding, 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 ding moment. I had not pushed him to the point where I was in his Billy Madison death book. So everyone out there are people in your life, maybe 1, maybe 2, who are capable of murder if provoked and pushed. So do not, whether you're in traffic and someone cuts you off and flips you the bird, do not engage. Walk away, because this shit is real. It's out there, and it's smarter to just befriend Milton and have him on your side, because it actually does happen. And I'm lucky today, because if I was an asshole to him, I don't know what he could have done.
Yeah, I think going to school and hanging out with the goth kids, hanging out with the stoners, hanging out with the unpopular people, and kind of being weird myself has translated into doing that in the workplace as well, because I've worked with people who are socially awkward or mentally different. And I think in early days, I'm saying like late 90s, early 2000s, people would still kind of shit on those people at the office. But thankfully, I think now in 2020, people have become much more sensitive to it and are a little more like encouraging, a little more thoughtful, a little more aware of all the things that might make a person behave differently. And so I felt really bad for Milton. That's the one part of the movie where, I might have laughed in 99, but here I just felt really bad for him. And by the way, Milton was played by Stephen Root, who I felt so glad to see in HBO's Perry Mason be absolutely fucking diabolical. He's a fantastic actor.
Yeah, I mean, Stephen Root, if you watch any HBO, he was fucking amazing on True Blood, where he plays the vampire that's in love with Jason. And he is one of the best parts of Barry, which is a show I wish that we had done on Shat on TV. If all of you out there have not watched Barry, it's absolutely brilliant.
The next morning, Peter drives to Initech fully expecting to be arrested, but discovers that the building has been set on fire by a disgruntled Milton, destroying all the evidence of the scheme. Milton flees the scene with the traveler's checks. Samir and Michael begin new jobs at Initech's rival Initrode, while Peter lands a dream job as a construction worker with his neighbor Lawrence. Milton uses the money from the checks to vacation in Mexico.
So there's some serious plot holes in the end of this movie. Obviously, the company would clearly have electronic records of some kind. It wasn't just like paper records where it burnt down and there's like no sign of the missing money. They would have figured out it was missing eventually. And now, granted, I don't know what IP address technology there was in 1999, but I feel like they still could have been caught. And there, of course, is the magazine salesman who knows what they're doing. Like somehow they're going to get found out. And I think that what's interesting about this is when researching, I found that Mike Judge was really unhappy with the third act of this script. He thought it was way too rushed. He found all these massive plot holes and he really wanted to redo it, but the studio didn't want to spend the time to allow him to rewrite and finish the end of the movie. And I kind of wish they had, because I feel like it's such a perfect film 75% of the way through, and then they just kind of fuck the landing.
Yeah, Ash, I agree. I love this movie, but this last section did feel a bit rushed. And I think they tried to address it by like showing the computer burning up in the fire to imply like the data was stored locally or something, and then it was gone. But that doesn't make any sense, because if that were the case, they would have just bricked their own computers in the first place to avoid prosecution. So it's out there, somewhere. And I was thinking the same thing. I was like, there's an additional part of the movie, right, that shows what else they had to do to get out of this. And it was like, no, I thought like maybe they'd all be vacationing down in Mexico or something. Like they all ran off with Milton.
See, I'm wondering if they tried to pin it on Milton. That Milton wasn't just vacationing, he was hiding. That by him leaving as the fire happened, the money was gone. It looks like he's the disgruntled employee who they stopped paying, who then did it. But again, that's just fan fiction.
Yeah, I mean, we might just be overthinking this. It is, after all, a comedy. And on a final thought from me, speaking of comedy, this movie could exist without Lawrence, the neighbor, but it wouldn't be half as cool. Like he is a man who knows exactly what he is and what he wants. When he gets asked what he'd do with $1 million, he's like, 2 chicks at once. And Peter's like, you think 2 chicks are going to come on you just for money? And he's like, the kind of chicks that would have me would, like he knows he's not attractive. He knows he's not living the life, but he's like, man, if you just want to do nothing, you could do that without money. I got a cousin who does that. I'm glad that Peter ended up working with Lawrence, because I have loads of friends like Lawrence. And when I hang out with them, I'm like, man, I'm kind of envious here. I got a friend, Burton, who served in the Navy. And then after he got out of the Navy, he went aboard like Alaskan fishing vessels, decided he wanted to do that for a while. And after he saw the world, he just moved back into his dad's house. And he has this beat up Ford Escort that he fixes up. He's got his little Australian cattle dog. He likes to go camping. He likes to play video games, and he likes to work on cars, and he does just fine. Or the King Bee. Mm-hmm. He's like a mix between Lawrence and Peter. Like he worked at office life, and then he just decided, nah, fuck it. I want to make jewelry and do kayak tours.
Yeah, the actor who played Lawrence said that he was going for a look and kind of like a vocal register of somebody who listens to the Allman Brothers a lot. And it made me laugh out loud when I was thinking about rewatching this film, because I don't think I've heard a smarter or more accurate, influence to like portrayal of a character than that. And I think you want to talk about stuff that has held up. All of his jokes held up. Every single one of Lawrence's interactions completely held up in this movie.
And Lawrence kept reminding me of Margie from Fargo. Leads a very simple life, but is probably the happiest person in the entire cast and the smartest. When Peter's like, hey, you want to come over watch TV? He goes, no, man, I don't want you to fuck my life up too. He's the smartest guy. So I love Lawrence. He's got it going on right.
And speaking of doing extra work on the weekend, so Ash, I spent 12 hours on Saturday working on a TV commercial shoot. And I met all these grip workers. So for people who don't know, the grips are basically the people who handle all the equipment during a shoot, right? So they're setting up the lighting rigs, the electrical, they're setting up the cameras, the dolly work, all that stuff. And I hung out with these guys for 12 hours and I was like, holy shit, like this culture of grip work, like union work, it's so liberating. Every job should be like this. So I was kind of mildly jealous. They show up, they all have like this like quasi uniform. It's dirty jeans and flannels and a beanie. They're smoking cigarettes on the job and they stand around a lot. They get craft services. They have in their contract, when we show up, there will be a table. There's going to be coffee and breakfast sandwiches. At fucking noon, there will be sandwiches and Dr. Pepper, Sprite and Coke, all we can drink, bottled water. Like they have their things that they like to do. And when they are done, when it's 5 o'clock, they clock the fuck out. They go, they grab some beers. They don't take their work home with them. It's honest, active work. They're on a different place every day. And I was like, guys, fucking, this seems really fucking cool. Like, are you happy? And they're all said, we are terrified because we never know when the next job is coming.
Oh.
And they also have to compete with each other.
Yeah, but you're envious of them.
What a depressing way to end the podcast.
I don't think it's depressing. I think it's liberating.
It's like you're making a PSA to like work corporate culture because it's
bullshit.
It's
bullshit.
No, man, they're like the last cowboys.
No, I said this before. If I was single, if I was, just I could see myself living on some tropical island in a tiny shed. I would just need some kind of internet service. But otherwise, I don't need much. I don't need a nice big house, fancy car. I would love to have a simple life and just actually grow old and just enjoy myself. So, you know what? But again, every job has it. In the corporate culture, you might make a little more, so you have financial security. But Lawrence, he's not going home at night worrying about projects on the schedule or about corporate synergy or about, breaking the paradigm. Come on, whatever. He goes home and he lives his life. And for that, we can all be a little bit envious.
Well, now is the time in the podcast where we give our wipe score. Wipe score is our way of telling you how many wipes this movie would take to get off your respective butts. 0 wipes is a perfect movie. It is a tchotchkes outfit with 37 pieces of flair, ready to go, looking sharp. And a 5 wiper is sex with Lumbergh while he's sweating with his big hairy chest and his coffee and his suspenders. Ash, we'll start with you. What is your wipe score for Office Space?
So obviously this is a really funny movie. I think it's funnier in the sense that like it's much better than average. And I think there's a reason why the film has held up. It's really honest about how ridiculous our work culture is here in the States. That type of corporate hassle that most people have to deal with. All of those things make a lot of sense and they're done. The satire is done very well, but it isn't a perfect movie. I didn't remember it being as clunky as it is at the end. I also think it runs a little long and the humor, it really dies out as it goes on. I think that Ron Livingston, he's a great leading man, but Mike Judge hadn't found exactly the formula that brought perfection yet when he did this movie. I think if you look at this versus Silicon Valley, which just ended last year on HBO, you see how Mike Judge took like the fledgling idea of this and made it perfect in that series. It's very much a similar, theme, a similar idea. And we were talking ahead of time before we started recording. And I think it's because while Ron Livingston is charming, he's not a comedian. And when Mike Judge, paired up with comedians like Thomas Middleditch and like Kumail Nanjiani and Martin Starr, it just was absolute gold. And so I can't watch this and not compare it to Silicon Valley. And so with that in mind, it's not a perfect movie. I can't give it even 1 wipe. I'm going to go with a 1.75.
Just for like 30 seconds there, Ash made this sound like a legitimate film podcast. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome, guys. That's why you keep me around.
And now I'm going to screw it up. This for me was a movie that did something very rare in the world of Shat, which is it got funnier since the first time I watched it. Like the older I get, the funnier this movie gets. When I first saw it, I was in college and I thought the world that was depicted in Office Space was like hyperbole. I thought that this was over the top, that this was not the real world. It was just kind of a comedic look at what an office was like. Now I've lived it and I can relate. And this shit is real. But I agree, Ash, it's not a perfect movie. Some parts just don't work. For me, it was kind of jokes that just felt a little dated. The anorexia joke, the fudge packer line. And there was a great missed opportunity with this young Orlando Jones. He was the magazine salesman. We know this guy is a fantastic actor. We know he's super hilarious. And it started out great. And I was like, where are they going to take this? And then it was just poof, it was gone. And that kind of sucked. But I was nicely surprised by how many of the gags still worked, as I mentioned. And unlike Three Amigos, Ash, I would say that this is a movie that I'd confidently recommend to any friend without any explanation. I don't have to handhold anybody walking through it. You can watch it by yourself, and it's still funny to this day. So for me, it's 1 wipe.
I think I'm going to go halfway between you guys. I think every field or whatever, every career or job that you have, there are movies that are trying to capture your environment. If you're on Wall Street, you have Wall Street, obviously. If you are working in IT in the 90s, you have this movie. If you were a server, you have Waiting. the 2005 film with Ryan Reynolds. In my mind, that is a connected movie. So whereas here we have tchotchkes, in Waiting, it's shenanigans. So it would have filled in those pieces, Gene, that you wanted to know about her backstory. But I really thought it was funny. The ending fizzles, but what's perfect? So I'm going to split the difference, basically. I think 1.25. It was still funny. I thought it captured that desperate depression, the dead eyes of a corporate office. And it really was fun to watch. So 1.25 for me.
All right, so that's 1.75 wipes from Ash, 1 wipe from me, and Big D threading the needle at 1.25 wipes, bring us to an average of 1.3 wipes repeating for Office Space.
So, Gene, with that score, that now ties Office Space in the 49 spot with Last Action Hero and RoboCop. Oh, no, it is slightly better than The Breakfast Club and is slightly worse than The Road Warrior.
I mean, it's a comedy. Those aren't.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's fine. Although, I mean, The Breakfast Club is a great movie, but it's a totally different movie. I think it's fine.
Yeah, there's problems with that as well. Yeah, I mean, it's when you get into that, I'll be honest with you. 50 and better, they're all pretty good movies.
Yeah.
Every movie that's ever been commissioned has been great. Thank you.
Keep them coming.
In the Mouth of Madness was commissioned.
It's a great movie.
I mean,
except for Willow. Willow's a piece of shit.
Great at being bad, yeah.
It really was.
All right, Big D, now is the time of the podcast where we get into our emails. It looks like we have one from Tony in the UK.
We do, Gene. And he wrote in following our Gross Point Blank episode. And he said, hi, just listen to the Gross Point Blank episode. John Cusack was on the Mark Maron What the Fuck podcast a couple weeks ago. And Mark told him that when he had Danny Trejo on the show, he asked him who was the toughest guy on set of Con Air. Danny replied, John Cusack is the baddest motherfucker on the whole movie. So obviously Mark asked John about this and he didn't deny it. Apparently the guy who plays Felix in Gross Point Blank is a world champion kickboxer and martial artist called Benny Uquides and is a good friend, and they've been training together for 30 years. So Cusack is as tough as a character in Gross Point Blank, and I'm sure that Gene and Ashley would be glad to hear it. Cheers, Tony S. from the UK.
I didn't doubt it for 1 second.
Just when you thought Cusack couldn't get any hotter, got hotter.
Just did.
God, he's probably a great lover, too, with all the technique.
Because of his kickboxing technique?
Yeah, the repetition, the flexibility. I think it all plays into it.
I mean, if he just wants to pound me while he's holding a boombox over his head, I'm into it. Anyway, Big D, what's coming up next?
So next week will be our Christmas 2020 holiday Shatacular. And it will cover a movie which tells a tale of upper crust executive Louis Winthrop III and a down-and-out hustler Billy Ray Valentine, who are subject to the bet by successful brokers Mortimer and Randolph Duke. Winthrop, an employee of the Dukes, is framed by the brothers for a crime he didn't commit. The siblings then install the street-smart Valentine in his position. When Winthrop and Valentine uncover the scheme, they set out to turn the tables on the Dukes. It was commissioned by Dennis and Gillian. It was originally released in 1983. It was directed by John Landis. And we have been getting this request since the very first episode of Shat the Movies. So it should be just a holiday miracle for everybody out there.
Well, thank you to Dennis and Jillian for commissioning that movie. And thank you so much to Dawn Sauce for commissioning Office Space and the Transformers, the movie. That concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat the Movies. You can email us, host@shatthemovies.com. And you can support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, completing a free anonymous survey to help attract advertisers, buying our merch, or commissioning your own movie. You can find all that information by visiting our website, shatthemovies.com. You can also check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Lovecraft Country, Westworld, True Detective, Taboo, Game of Thrones, Watchmen, and coming up, American Gods. You can find all that information on our website, shatontv.com, wherever fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. And if you stop by iTunes, please be sure to leave a 5-star review. That helps the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-hosts, Big D, Dick Ebert, Ash Schlafly, and the King Bee, I'm Gene Lyons. Merry Christmas, and be sure to join us on our next podcast for the following movie.
had the most absurd nightmare. I was poor and no one liked me.
I know what you're thinking. You see Porgy and Bess? We can make it, baby. Me and you.
Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy are trading places.
Help! Help! Hey, I don't want your bag, man. Help! 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 Help!
I'll bet that man could run our company as well as your young Winthorpe.
Are we talking about a wager, Randolph?
Is there a problem, officers?
Oh, Winthorpe. I'm glad your parents are not alive to see this.
What? No, wait! Now, this is totally preposterous. I'm not a thief.
Here we are. William, take off your clothes.
You are making a career decision here.
Take off your clothes.
Did you hear what this man said to me? I have witnesses. This man is physically threatening me.
Hey, Randy, Monte, this is nice. I like this.
We are commodities brokers, William. Commodities are agricultural products like wheat, which is used to make bread, pork bellies, which is used to make bacon, which you might find in a bacon and lettuce and tomato sandwich.
I'm considering going long on April wheat. What do you think, Valentine?
Freeze, slimeball.
Moi? Put that gun away at once, Winthorpe. You lost your mind?
Dan Aykroyd, Eddie Murphy. They're not just getting rich, they're getting even.
Do you have any better ideas?
Yeah, it occurs to me that the best way you hurt rich people is by turning them into poor people.
Dan Aykroyd, Eddie Murphy. Ralph Bellamy.
We've got to get Wilson and tell him to sell.
Don Amici.
Randolph, this isn't Monopoly money we're playing with.
Denham Elliott.
What a scumbag.
And Jamie Lee Curtis.
By the way, food and rent, not the only things around here that cost money. You sleep on the couch.
Trading places. Some very funny business.
South on in April of 142!